Welcome all to the press center of the Minister of Defense of Ukraine. To your attention, a weekly briefing by the English-speaking spokesman of the Minister of Defense of Ukraine on the situation in the area of joint forces operation. From 9th to 16th July 2018, the situation on the front line remained tense. The Russian occupying forces continued to shell out positions of the Ukrainian defenders and the joint forces units by deliberately breaking the Minsk agreement and the so-called Brest Armistice agreement announced in order to establish a complete ceasefire along the entire line of contact for the harvesting period. The Russian occupying troops used various types of mortars, grenade launchers, and other infantry weapons. From midnight Monday, July 9th, and as of today's morning of July 16th, the Russian occupying troops carried out 229 hostile shelling of the defensive positions of Ukrainian military forces throughout the line of contact. In addition, our defenders near Shirokine and Vodiane were shelled by 120mm mortars banned by the Minsk agreements. Moreover, positions of Ukrainian defenders near Novoluganske, Pavlopol, Vodiane, Gnutove, and Lebedinske came under repeated 82mm mortars attacks. As a result of hostilities and shelling of the defensive positions of the Ukrainian armed forces units during the reporting week, 11 soldiers of the armed forces of Ukraine were injured. I'd like to emphasize that the situation in the area of joint forces operations is entirely controlled by our troops. And concerning other important events that took place last week, the Sea Breeze 2018 Ukrainian-American military exercise kicked off in Odessa on July 9th. The purpose of the exercise that involves representatives of the armed forces of 19 countries is planning and conducting of military maritime security operations in the crisis region. Military maneuvers are taking part in Odessa and Mykolaiv region, as well as at specified sea ranges in the northwest part of the Black Sea. An important feature of the Sea Breeze 2018 Ukrainian-American military exercise is that the multinational staff will coordinate the operation of naval, air, and land forces from USS Mount Whitney, the flagship of the US 6th Navy Fleet. The personnel of the newly established command of the naval forces of the armed forces of Ukraine will form the basis of the multinational staff and will gain practical experience of operation, planning, and forces command according to NATO standards and in cooperation with international partners. The exercise will be running until July 21st. This drill involves 29 ships, boats and vessels, 1 submarine, 25 aircraft, and about 3,000 personnel. The main combat and training element and tasks will include actions of anti-ship and anti-air defense, over-the-beach amphibious landing, tactical maneuvering, and cruising in formation. July 9th, the annual edition of the White Book 2017, the Armed Forces of Ukraine, was presented in the Central Officers Club of the Armed Forces of Ukraine to the representatives of the military diplomatic corps and international organizations accredited in Ukraine. The English version of the White Book 2017 was presented by the Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine for European Integration, Lieutenant General Anatoly Petrenko, on behalf of the Minister of Defense of Ukraine. In the framework of the NATO Trust Fund for Medical Rehabilitation, 8 injured participants of combat action in the east of Ukraine were sent to Bulgaria to attend a 2-week rehabilitation program in the military hospital of Kalero, the city of Hisar. The initiative is being implemented on the basis of an agreement between the Ministry of Defense of the Republic of Bulgaria and the Ministry of Social Policy of Ukraine, within the framework of the project of the NATO Trust Fund for Medical Rehabilitation in Ukraine, signed in October 2017 and through fruitful cooperation between the Bulgarian side and the Ukrainian ministries, agencies, and the NATO Support and Procurement Agency, who were involved to the project implementation. The group was accompanied by the project supervisor of the NATO Trust Fund for Medical Rehabilitation in Ukraine, Mrs. Natalia Melnichenko, and the commissioner of the President of Ukraine for Rehabilitation of Anti-Terrorist Operation participants, Mr. Vadim Sviridenko. Minister of Defense of Ukraine, General of the Army of Ukraine, Stepan Poltorak, took part in NATO summit in Brussels, Belgium, as a member of Ukrainian delegation chaired by the President of Ukraine, Petro Poroshenko. The issues discussed during the summit included strengthening and ensuring global and regional stability, combating terrorism, deepening cooperation with the European Union, modernizing the alliance, distributing financial contributions made by countries to defense issues, and reinforcing common democratic values and availability of transatlantic unity of countries. Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Stepan Poltorak, has met with Minister of Defense of Finland on the sidelines of the NATO summit in Brussels. During the meeting, the two defense leaders have discussed the current security situation and the steps taken by Ukraine to resolve the situation in eastern regions, and have defined priorities of the development of further bilateral cooperation between defense ministries. Moreover, the Minister of Defense of Ukraine took part in the joint North Atlantic Council meeting with Ukraine and Georgia in the margins of the NATO summit. In addition, the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Stepan Poltorak, had a conversation with the Minister of National Defense of Canada. 30th July, during a working visit to Odessa region, the Minister of Defense of Ukraine, General of the Army of Ukraine, Stepan Poltorak, inspected construction of Dachne II military garrison for Marines. Minister of Defense debriefed persons in charge concerning the implementation of construction stages and challenges requiring his intervention. Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Stepan Poltorak, said that today, Minister of Defense has established the best conditions for service career in the armed forces of Ukraine, and that the progress in the construction of Dachne II military garrison was significant since the last inspection in April 2018. Stepan Poltorak expressed hope that the Marine Corps, that has about 1,000 Marines, will live in more comfortable conditions by the end of this year. The first national hackathon on the security and defense of Ukraine will be held in July 23-27 in Kiev. It will be held according to the standards and in the format of the TIDE Hackathon, which is the NATO-organized event dedicated to finding solutions of the challenges of interoperability and the coherence of all alliance components. Representatives of the signal troops of the armed forces of Ukraine were among the winners at the TIDE Hackathon 2017 and 2018. The task of the first defensive hackathon will be to improve the cooperation between the security forces in the context of the software products development for solving urgent defense and security issues. The results of the first defense hackathon will be presented to the leadership of the components of the security and defense sector of Ukraine. Unlike the Olympiad in mathematics, the tasks that the members of the National Defense Hackathon will decide will be a purely applied nature. The Air Force of the Armed Forces of Ukraine took part in the International Air Show, the Royal International Air Tattoo 2018. So one of the largest international aviation shows, the Royal International Air Tattoo 2018, was dedicated to the 100th anniversary of the UK Royal Air Force. Ukrainian military aviation was represented by two Su-27 fighters from the 831st Tactical Air Force Command Center and military transport aircraft Il-76 from Melitopol Transport Aviation Brigade of the Air Force of Ukraine. Colonel Alexander Aksanchenko, the deputy commander of the 831st Tactical Air Brigade, who won the nomination of the best aerobatics pilot among the NATO partner nations at the Riyadh 2017, has demonstrated new pilotage program with its Su-27 fighter. That's all the information I have. Thank you for your attention.